Well, here's the cake question. This will be on the final exam. We gave you a choice. If you wanted to recreate it, then you could. I don't know if any group actually took Mr. Montaigne and I up on the offer, though. Okay, so first things first, Leah's a baker who specializes in wedding cakes. She wants to calculate the cost of decorating just the top of each level of the cake to ice it, right? So there's 3 levels. What we do to do this question is split them up. So I kind of go top down, even though the question's written bottom up. But the top is the easiest to calculate. So the top layer of my cake has a radius of 3. So if I want to draw a little example, I can draw the little circle. Okay, and I put my point in the middle, and I draw a line out from the point, and that's my radius, and my radius is equal to 3. What's the area of a circle? The area of a circle is equal to pi multiplied by radius squared. So for the top layer, all I have to do is just insert the 3 where the r is. So pi times 3 squared. If you don't have a square button on your calculator, 3 squared is just 3 times 3. So if I type pi times 3 in my calculator, I get 28.27 centimeters squared, because this is now the area, right? And we squared here, so that was our unit, so then our unit is squared. Okay, that's just the top layer of the cake. If I go to my next slide, and I'm going to do each layer of the cake on a different slide. Okay, let's look at the second or the middle level of the cake. Okay, so we just dealt with the top level. Now let's deal with the middle level. So the middle layer of the cake has a diameter of 10.2. So if I draw another circle, let's label this the middle. Okay, I draw a dot in the center of my circle. I know my diameter goes all the way across, and that's 10.2. But my area for my circle is pi times radius squared. So how do I change my diameter into a radius? Well, if I divide my diameter, my 10.2, if I divide it by 2, I'll get my radius. And that's equal to 5.1. I think that's yellow showing up as nicely here. Let's change the color here. Okay. Now I have a radius that I can plug into my formula. So area is equal to pi times 5.1 squared. And if you type that into a calculator, you'll get the area of the middle layer is equal to 81.71 centimeters squared. Okay, so I have my middle layer, I have my top layer in the previous slide. Now I'm going to look at calculating the bottom layer. So at the bottom layer, here's the bottom layer, I get a circumference. Now I need to do a lot more work for this. Okay, the circumference of a circle, the formula is equal to 2 times pi times r. So I can get the radius from my circumference formula if I rearrange it, and I'll rearrange it for you. So my radius will equal my circumference that's given in the question divided by 2 times pi. If I type this into my calculator, I'll type in radius is equal to 44 divided by 2 times pi. And if I calculate that, I should get my radius is equal to, where are we here? 7 centimeters. Now I have my radius. Now I can figure out my area. So I go to my area formula. I'm running out of room. My area formula from the other two slides is just the same thing. Pi times r squared. So pi times 7 squared gives me 153.94 centimeters squared. Okay. So once I calculate the surface area of all three circles, start looking at the cost part. Okay. But my cost is in per square inch of icing. So I'm going to have to do a conversion as well. This is obviously a lot of work problem. So I can add up. So I'm going to add the 3 layers of cake. I guess if I write slower, I can, no, it doesn't make a difference. Left my stylus at home. Okay, so I add 3 layers. So the top layer, I'm going to pause here and I'll just write it out and it's on there. Okay, so I just type them out so they don't look as horrible when I write them. So the top layer was 28.27 centimeters squared, the middle layer is 81.71 centimeters squared, and the bottom layer is 153.94 centimeters squared. Okay, centimeters squared is not inches squared, but we'll get to that. So if I added all 3 of these values up, which I want to do because I want to get a total, let's add them all up, you would get 263.92 centimeters squared. Okay, now I'm ready for the price. Okay, so if I look at my conversion, I just wrote the 263 up here so I had it. 1 square inch is equal to 6.45 centimeters squared. So if you remember from the beginning of the class, when we looked at proportions, I can just divide, make a proportion and cross multiply. So I'm trying to figure out the inches, so I can make that x. And I have the 263.92 centimeters squared. I know I'm doing this right if my units are on top of each other. If I cross multiply this, it becomes 263.92 divided by 6.45, which gives me 56.42 square inches in total. Now all I have to do is take my 56.42 square inches, multiply it by my $1.09 price for the icing found in the question, and I'll get a grand total of $61.50 for icing the surface of just the 3 tiers of the cake. That's the proper way to do this question. Another way you could do it, I guess, is to change the measurements of the middle, bottom, and top layer into inches before. Okay,